joined now by researcher Human Rights Watch Anita Ewang on the news at 7 for an expert's view on these. The ICRC figure is 1,000 more than what was reported in 2019. It says nearly 60% of these missing people are minors at the time they went missing, meaning thousands of parents do not even know where their children are, if they're alive or dead. In your opinion, does this figure truly represent what's happening, especially in the Northeast?
Thank you very much for having me. I think the numbers as they stand are very problematic. They're very concerning. And the increase of over 1,000 people is an indication that the problem is not waning. It's in fact getting much worse. And by our assertions, this is possibly an understatement of the numbers of people who are currently missing in the Northeast. The ICRC only regards as missing people who've been registered and documented with them. There are possibly thousands more who have not had access to ICRC to report a missing loved one or document that a loved one has gotten missing across the Northeast. And possibly the numbers are much more.
Let's talk about the database. You tweeted sometime in August about the failure on the part of government to establish database 5 years after announcing these developments. What exactly did you mean?
In 2015, the government, really understanding the extent of the problem, even at that time, came together with relevant civil society groups, the National Human Rights Commission, the ICRC, and committed to establishing a database. I mean, the point of having a database is really to ensure that they're documenting the numbers and the people who are getting missing, and they're using this as a baseline for investigation to be able to provide information and give families that much needed closure or help them reunite with loved ones that they've been able to find. But 5 years after, we see that this has been largely not operational. A few steps have been taken. As of 2018, the National Human Rights Commission signed a mandate and some sort of organizational structure for the entire flow of the database and the mechanism to be able to investigate and find missing people in conflict. However, this has not really kicked off since after then. And it's something that we're really calling on the authorities to focus on. Because like you can see, the numbers are just increasing.
Anita, we can tell that this is unconventional given the guerrilla nature of attacks from the insurgency and, of course, the victims that follow. What are the relevant stakeholders in this regard, especially in catering to missing people?
The primary responsibility lies on the government. Nigeria, as a government that has a responsibility to ensure the peace and security of all of its citizens, regardless of whether or not we're in a conflict situation, has a duty to sit on top of this. More so as a party to relevant international conventions, including the International Convention Against Enforced Disappearances and the Geneva Conventions, which spell out the duties of the authorities in a situation of conflict like what we have in the Northeast. It is primarily the duty of the Nigerian authorities. International humanitarian organizations might help. They might seek to be able to bring some sort of focus on these issues, but primarily the duty is on the government to be able to kickstart the process and really ensure that they are starting what is more than necessary to be able to provide information, to document the numbers of people in their custody, to be able to reunite families, and like I said, prevent more of these attacks from happening. That's the ideal situation. But really just to be able to start a process to show Nigerian citizens that their lives matter, and when people go missing, that's not the end of it.
Anita Ewang is a researcher with Human Rights Watch. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.